Hello, I'm Graham Sinden. Welcome to Talking About Speedway. I'm here, as you can see, alongside of Russell Mitchell. Welcome to the program, Russell.
How you going, Graham? Or maybe we do this?
And maybe we do that. And of course, we're standing here in front of the world famous Mitch chassis. You developed this in about, what, 1990?
About then we started developing, and I think we really hit the nail on the head about 92.
Yeah.
I was working on the tugs up north, and so we had a north season, so it was basically 12 months of the year developing it. Had a bike which was connected with all rose joints and different bits and pieces. And we just moved around until we found exactly what we really liked, and then just jigged it up, and the rest is history.
Now, talking history, going back to 1990 odd, what got you into designing one in the first place rather than just riding like most other people did?
Well, I built my first bike. It was actually, in the old days, I'd get a road bike, chop it up, bolt something on it, and then a couple of guys were building, you know, complete unit construction ones, but they were over east. And I sort of it sort of looked to me that you're getting people's mistakes.
Yeah.
So it was really, that was part of the challenge for me, was the building of the bikes, the development. And you know, I had a really good mate that got me into Speedway. He says, to us, if you want a good chassis, you've got to buy one from over east. And I thought, well, I don't know about that. And well, the rest is history again, yeah. So here we are.
Now, when you developed this chassis, you turned sidecar racing on its head. I mean, yourself, Mark Drew, you went over east, you cleaned everyone up, and everyone was clambering to get onto a Mick chassis after that. So you started manufacturing, jigging up and selling chassis and rollers to
Well,
people?
it was sort of one of your dreams. People have dreams, and then it got bigger than Ben Hare. I was built these, and they were really good, and I really wanted to. I'd been going to sea as a merchant seaman since I was 17 and a half, so it was a lifestyle thing, and I wanted a real change.
Yeah.
And so I had a dream of this sort of thing. It's nuts. And we were, myself and Red Page were hanging over the fence talking about it, and said, well, no one realises the chassis is so good. They just think I'm a good rider. And we watched Mark Drew had just started up and said, look at that crazy lunatic, let's chuck him on a bike, and as I say, the rest is history, yeah. But it's been very, very successful.
Now, not only have you developed and tweaked the Mitch chassis, and as I say, they're worldwide. Every chassis running around today is a Mitch or a nice copy of it.
Yeah.
But you also developed the HealthTech fuel injection. You seem to have this penchant for getting sidecars more sophisticated and better.
I'm too old to really be at the pointy end, you know, I shouldn't be there. But that side of the things, the development is what's keeping me in, and man, this fuel injection, it's harder to work out than a woman, but it was really simple mistakes.
Yeah.
Really dumb stuff that's part of it, you know. We discovered after about 6 years that the fuel pump actually has its own filter, and everyone knows with methanol that was just full of gunk, and that was one of the problems. And of course, the quality of the wiring harnesses that you need to make has to be like really high spec, and that was a trade in itself I had to learn, and I've got a pile and thousands of dollars worth of old wiring harnesses that weren't just quite right. So those are the challenges, and it's been an adventure, and like the response from fuel injection, I'd rather come third on fuel injection than carburetors any day of the week. They're just fantastic. Yeah.
Now, any self-respecting person watching this interview with you and looking at this bike, if you looked at that front end, here's Mitch going again in the development phase, brand new front suspension, it looks Mickey Mouse. Just tell us a little bit about that.
Well, when I first built them, the front ends were pretty, I knew we had side load on them, so it shouldn't be like a road bike yokes front end, because they're made for no side load, and they've actually gone back to them. But I've always had an idea, and people started copying them from the day one. There's always these copies, and I thought, well, they're all just copying my front ends, and there's so much more, to get it better. And now that because of COVID, there's less work offshore. I'm going to start building chassis again. There's a lot of changes I've made and advances that haven't really been brought forward. And I thought, well, I'll just pop in a new front end that's absolutely fantastic.
Right.
We brought all the weight back over the handlebars. We've made the suspension work so much better, the wheels so much lighter, and it's really, we just got to chrome it. I tend not to do shiny things, and apparently if you want to sell it, you've got to make it shiny.
Well, look, this looks absolutely fantastic to me. It's really professional. I'm looking forward to seeing its progress as you get on with that.
Yeah, it's it's a little bit hard on the eye because it's different to what we're already used to seeing, but
Totally different.
yeah,
Totally.
but it's really quite good. Lighter. We've got more torsional. We can actually, with the way it's built, we can actually put different linkages in stronger, so we strengthen up the front end of the rough track, or Dave Parker motocross track, or we can have it soft and a little bit of flex in the front end. So on a slick, soft track, we can get a little bit more movement in the front wheel, a little bit more side load.
Yeah. Now, the reason I'm here with you today is you're going to show us how to set up a sidecar for your first race and then adjustments you make during the race.
Yeah, well, for years since DOT, I've never held anything back. I've told everyone how to do it, and I actually get a bit short these days because they've done. Oh, have you done that? No. Have you measured your toe? No. You really, you go and see the professionals, even the solo riders. They're changing stuff all the time, and that's what you need to do. I really get a bit peeved when I see the young up and comers, and their bike's wrong. You tell them what to do, and they said, "Oh, I'll just learn to ride it." Well, all they're doing is learning how to ride a bad mistake, make bad habits, and really not enjoy it. So we'll go through some simple stuff. We'll try and make it quick because that's what you've got to do nowadays. And we've got a little bit of a whiteboard over there. We'll go over that, and then I'll show you on the important stuff on the bike, and then hopefully someone will listen and take their bikes forward and do well.
They're absolutely nuts if they don't. You don't get to be a champion for not knowing all of this knowledge, and you've been a champion for years and years. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you've got to say.
My tyre pressures, I like to maintain them as a standard. So a lot of the old guys used to pump up their back tyres to wash off drive, I should say, so the bike would turn easier. I feel that that's just actually slowing the bike down. So we run these, the front is pretty much 6.5. You really need a good gauge, because if you drop down to 5.5, it can fold under and you can get into trouble. So 6.5 to 8 for the front. Your back tyres are standard 19 on your solo tyres. I find if you lower it any more, you start to get too much squirm, and obviously if you lower it, you get too much squirm. If you go up a bit higher, it starts to spin up a bit more. Your chair, we keep that at 14, seems to be a nice little bit of flex and a bit of roll in your tyre. Sometimes we'll bring that down on really slick tracks where you've got to be off the throttle and sideways to use it as a brake more. So you sometimes come down to 10, but very, very rarely. So we're going to just talk about 3 main things to adjust on your sidecar. We keep it simple. Obviously guys go over do other things and stuff, but look, this is the easiest way to do it. Your sidecar setup is your wheelbase. So you start that short simply so you can find your gearing. Everyone's got so much horsepower now. If you run long wheelbase, you can very hard to find your correct gearing. You end up spinning, doing 200 mile an hour down the straight on your back wheel, and then it hooks up. The idea with your gearing to find that is to ride your bike like a road bike down the straights into the corners. Now if you find that suddenly you're doing 3,000 or 5,000 RPM, you're still over geared, because it's very important to find your gearing. It's very important to be able to roll your throttle and keep that wheel speed just above the speed on the track. So you get these 2 right, as short as possible that you can hang on to. And I look at the slots. I don't measure anything other than the slots, in your back wheel. We can look at that later. Anywhere past halfway is really, really long, so I keep it as short as I can. And then to tweak it is your sidecar toe out with the movement of your sidecar wheel. That helps turn the bike in the corner. So quite often the track might end up with a little bit of push mid-corner, and then you make that, and you start setting that up. Remembering that the more toe out you go to, the more crabbing it will do down the straights, and it'll wash speed off. So there's the 3 main things to do when you're setting up your bike.
Mitch, you talked about the importance of the toe out setting, and I see you've got a bar there. Can you just run through that process for us?
Yeah, for sure, Graham. It's basically your stub axle in here. As you turn it, it'll change the angle of your sidecar wheel. So that the more out, you've got to understand that the more the sidecar toes out, as you load it up going into the corner, it'll pull the back around and make the bike turn easier. And conversely, the more, if you make it too much, you lose your speed. So what we do is to find that. We never go under 25mm toe out, because if you get a big locky, you want your tyre to keep turning. If they toe in, they will stall, fill up with dirt, and then you shoot off into the fence. So what we do is we get on all fours and line up this tyre with the back tyre at the front end. That's pretty much all you need to do, because it's fairly neutral. We put a straight edge there alongside the two sides of the tyres. We then measure from the rim at axle length to wherever on your tube, and then we take another measurement at axle length at the back. Now your toe out needs to be 25mm more at the back than at the front than the back. Then we'll make 2 marks, one on the sidecar axle, one on the frame. We'll then toe it out so that we've got to say 80mm. Toe out, which is about the max. Some guys go way over the top, 150, and that works for them, that's fine. I find any more than 80 and you start to be going sideways down the straight and it washes speed off. So you get your 80 and then you make a third mark and you'll find there'll be a little space, and that's where you do your adjustments. And you'll find, if you get that right, you'll find a really big change. It'll make a big change to the way the bike handles and it'll be happy days. So they should roll with these and roll in a straight line. The next thing I want to show you is about before you get to the track. And this is one of the most important things. Really, this is the most important thing on your bike. Especially because a lot of you have got copies of these bikes, the most important thing is the lean of the back tyre, the lean of the back wheel. Okay? You want to get yourself a little, I've just got this on my phone, angle thing, and we find our angles and we adjust the front end height and the chair depth to get this just right. Now you want a lean on the back wheel, no less than 6 degrees, and 6.4 degrees is the absolute perfect number. What happens with the bike, if it sits up too much, the front end tends to broach, to pull in. It doesn't steer so neutrally, doesn't turn so well. And it used to be beautiful at Claremont because it was such a hard track. We'd actually put when guys got new bikes, we'd put a couple of spaces in the axle, sit it up a tiny bit. Once we knew that they could ride okay, we'd pull the spaces out and then they'd go a lot faster. So this is the most important setup for your overall bike.
Russell, you've gone to a bit of trouble to teach us and show us how to set up a bike. How does the passenger interact with all of that setting?
Well, Graham, the passenger's a really integral part, especially with these. It's got to be smooth, it's got to be like art. When we get a new passenger, I try and teach them one thing at a time, and the main thing to really to be comfortable on the bike, the first thing you need to learn is how to get off it. And if you just follow a few instructions, it becomes really easy. So a new passenger needs to think about one thing, and that's their bum, right? Yeah. I can't do it, I'm too old, I'm not a passenger. But if they just concentrate on lowering their bottom first and dropping their bum before they worry about getting to the bar, they'll find that if they drop over long enough, the bar will just be in front of them. Normally what happens with the new passenger, they look at the bar, they go down, they leave the bum on the seat, the weight's still up here, and it's a real hard time. So that's the one thing we need to do, because I believe the passengers have changed in these bikes because they handle so quickly, so well, that when a lot of guys in the old days, obviously they'll be working together to get the bike around. Now if the bike's not right, the passenger needs to more than before think about it for the next lap and get the bike set up better the next lap. He's going to fix it the next lap, because if the rider adjusts, the passenger adjusts as well, the bike's over adjusted and you're not solving the problem. You're just getting out of sorts. So new passengers want to have a swing, fantastic, insane, awesome. Drop your bum first, and then everything will follow. Okay? Really important.
So if you have a bit of a setup or another outlet's in your way, you've got to overcook it or do something, forget about trying to catch up. You look for the next lap to get a good one in there.
It's always about flow. Quite often you'll see at Kinjo, the guys that haven't got any experience, I think it's okay to come in and change their angle. They've got a faster bike than you. If they keep on their own track and concentrate on going faster, they're not going to get in a shitty situation, It's all about smoothness and flow. You think about it as an art, and yeah, that corner's a bit shitty. The passenger's got all that time to think about it. Okay, I need to get down a little bit further, I need to get back, get that drive. There's a bloody dirty great hole there. I've got to get rid of it because it is, the passenger's still going through the hole because it actually happens to be the fastest way around the track. So sometimes people say, why does he keep going that hole? It's the quickest way. So all that stuff, process it. If the bike's pushing, you come in pits after mainly, you do your debrief, and it's usually you have to change setup rather than, you don't want to end up with the passenger overextending himself, because that's basically the bike setup is not right.
So you'll do the setup and the passenger will still do the same thing?
Yes. Yeah.
Not the passenger compensating for a bad bike?
Well, look, in the moment, you know, as a lap to lap, but you really want to, that's all about getting back in the pits and changing it to be right. Passengers really need to be consistent, so that, you know, if they're not consistent, if they're going like this, I mean, I remember a bit of a late once, the passenger was working so hard, I literally had 2 fingers on the handlebar and he was driving around the track. And so when we went really, really hard, he was trying to do my job, and that's why female passengers are so good, because they keep the leathers clean and they know they can really prioritise what their actual job is. They don't try and ride the bike for you. So it's pretty important. Yeah.
Is there an ideal weight for a passenger? A heavier passenger, a lightweight passenger?
For me, I always like light. You know, that's me. I mean, Justin Playstead won Australian title with a passenger as big as me, and a bike was so long. I'm just like, hats off, man. He did so well. You know, so a long, thin passenger works for riders, especially the smaller riders, because they can stretch their weight out. I mean, I have such a good time with Sharpie, with Andrew Sharp. He's a big fella, and he's really good fun to be with and have a skid with, you know. So yeah, it's about setup as well, but throughout the ages, I've never put so much money into. I never had high horsepower engines because I was too busy, you know, developing the frames. So someone would buy my frame and then they had the money and the sponsorship to put big motors in them. So I was always, if I could throw a few kilos out off the back, then it was like, come and catch me if you can, you know.
Russell, we just spoke about the passenger and the input he has on the bike, but you as the rider, to get the thing around the track as quickly as possible, got a fair bit of input as well.
Yeah, mate. One of the big changes, probably not the big change, but before these came out and started to dominate, the riders used to fold their leg back and put their weight on their knee and actually sit prone. Once that happens, you can't move. So the idea is to ride on the balls of your feet so that you can actually, the rider can move his weight when needed. So out the corners you can pull off and get more speed. So you really need that foot there. I'm going to put my weight on my knee now because we're not moving, but basically you never put weight on your knee because you'd be going too slow. So you've got to push from there, right into your sidecar so you can get a little bit of change in the aspect of the bike as you go around, and you've got to be able to move in out of the straights. You can beat your passenger because you're lower. The passenger's got to get up and over and in the chair. So it's always important that the rider is actually mobile.
That's been unbelievable. Clearly you've demonstrated that the bike has to be set up nicely. You've got to have a passenger that works with you and knows what he's doing, and of course you as the rider have a fair bit of input into the whole control of the bike. What other tips can you give us before we wrap up here?
Look, Graham, it's pretty much maintenance. You've got to really have a good maintenance schedule, and that comes with sponsorship as well. Commitment. You've really got to commit. You've got to eat, breathe. You know,
yes.
In the old days, I do lots of visualising of corners, visualising of winning, visualising of starts. You know, really get it in your head and practice. You know, it's really, I think what's lacking now in the young folk is they see it more like a hobby, you know, and then all of a sudden it's hard work. You've got to enjoy doing laps and laps, and you've just got to, I mean, I developed these bikes going to Claremont. There'd be no bikes on, it'd be full clay sprint car night on the Friday night. I'd be there Thursday. I'd be racing down the clay track. I'd be learning the bike, getting race fit, keeping race fit, and actually enjoying the lifestyle. So doing all that is really important. Laps, laps and laps. And I can't emphasise that enough. We've possibly got an Australian title the next year or two, and our guys and up and comers need to get down to every practice they can.
Okay. Look, we're out of time, unfortunately. I really again thank Russell for what he's shown us this morning here in his workshop. You've been watching Talking About Speedway. My name's Graham Sinden. We'll see you next time.